Okay, we are at 12:30. I am going to go ahead and get started. Just so you know, I'm Tammy Costrini from Insurance Advisors Direct, and today we have Joe Markland from Enrichly. He is going to be sharing a little bit about the new ICHRA platform that we have partnered with, and a little housekeeping to get started. We are recording this webinar and it will be on our YouTube page in the next couple of days. So please feel free to look forward to go back to it. Also, this is the next evolution in health benefits with ICHRA. And we are very proud to have partnered with Enrichly to develop this platform to put out to agents. This is going to be your first look at a smarter and more agent first foot forward way to offer ICHRAs. If you're new to the ICHRA space, it's a flexible alternative to traditional group plans. As we know, there's been a lot of disruption in the group and the individual market. We're going to continue to see that. So we want to be with you on the forefront of all these changes and how to best serve your clients. Again, this was built to keep us front and center, to be on the cutting edge of what is coming. And today's webinar is just the start. Additional training sessions and deeper dives are going to be coming very soon. So stay tuned to hear more about it, along with more about ICHRA in general. But today we just wanted to go ahead and introduce you to the new platform and all the changes that will be coming along with it. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Joe, thank you so much for joining us today, and I will let you go ahead and get started on that.
Great, thank you, everyone. And with all these Zoom presentations, the goal here is just to get the message across, not to bore you to death. So I'll try to plow through some of the data. But I guess at a high level, that Insurance Advisors Direct is in the game. We have a new model, and if you go here and you bump into something or you have questions, you can always pick up the phone and call. So you don't expect you to retain everything, but we'll give you a flavor of the perspective, and we could ask questions at the end. A little bit of background, I'm going to age myself by saying I started in the benefits business in 1986, but some of you may be in Michigan, maybe not others, but my intro to ICHRA was I worked with a fellow in a partnership in Michigan from 1990 to 95 or whatever, 6, when I was working with Citizens Insurance. I had a health insurance arm through America Financial, and we did a partnership with SelectCare, who the CEO was Mark Bertolini at the time. And we used to do level funded. People think level funded is a whole new thing. We did level funded in 1990. But my interest in looking at fixing healthcare started when I heard Bertolini give a presentation. He went on to become the CEO of Aetna, and now he's the CEO of Oscar. But he gave a presentation to the Mayo Clinic in 2014 where he basically said employers are going to be out of the middle of health insurance. And then I heard a Trump and Clinton person on the radio in 2016 say the exact same thing, that the root cause of escalating healthcare costs is our financing system, and we need to get employers out of the middle of health insurance. So when the ICHRA showed up, it wasn't a surprise to me, because I heard some pretty powerful people say, we believe that is part of the problem. Let me see. So that's a little background. I've been talking about ICHRA before ICHRA since 2016, where I gave a presentation, the potential end of employer-based insurance. So I would start by saying that ICHRA is not a mistake. It is not the solution of last resort. It's something everyone should pay attention to, because the idea of getting employers out of the middle could be the future of healthcare in America, and you got to be prepared. So a few things I'll get a few saleable things. I heard this presentation from Harvard Business School. They say, how do you win new business? Well, you need to be different. Your differences need to be relevant, and your differences are best visually. So I think ICHRA fits in this category. A lot of people, employers, are thinking, well, I have this group plan. I've been doing it for 30 years. And all of a sudden, the ICHRA comes along. In many cases, the incumbent broker is not showing an ICHRA. And you could go in and show something that's different. The differences need to be relevant. If your costs are significantly lower, the benefit going to ICHRA is lower, And then you do a demo, and then I'll do a demo at the end of this today to show an example of how a consumer could buy health insurance on the individual marketplace, probably at a cost less than what the employer's paying today. So the problem really created is this right here. I say the number one problem, and 50% of financially stressed employees, people are stressed financially, 100 hours a year of loss in productivity. And the root cause of this is health insurance cost. In the last 10 years, health insurance costs, this is probably a 3-year-old slide. Health insurance costs have gone up 59%. However, employee contributions have gone up 71% and deductibles 150%. So a lot of people, let me give you an example of this, how we sell ICHRA. I'll cut to the chase on this. I was dealing with a union, 300 people, and they said they have a very rich plan, $1,000 deductible. They said, we need to offer, if they go to an ICHRA, a very rich plan, $1,000 deductible. I said to them, you really don't have $1,000 deductible. He said, what is a deductible? It's the amount of money you pay before your insurance kicks in. Well, that's called premium too. I said, you're charging them $280 a month, which is $3,300 a year. They actually pay $4,300 before their insurance kicks in because they're mandated to pay $3,300 through premiums. The number one problem with employer health care is not the richness of the plans, but the increasing employee contributions have made it unaffordable. Now, what's interesting, here's a stat here. The number of people on group health insurance has not gone up in 20 years. I mean, show me a market where there's no growth in 20 years and say, hey, this is a great program, isn't it? The population has gone up like 16% or whatever, but the number of people on group plans has not. And the cost shift is significant. This is a slide here. I'll pay attention to right here. If you look at the adjusted salary increases from 2009 to 2019 of the bottom quartile of earners in the Midwest, salaries went up $1,100, but the premium increases to employees is $2,247. So employees have a net loss in income because the health insurance cost, the employee contributions have outpaced wage increases. There's your problem. People have been getting a reduction in pay. So the health insurance and tax laws have been the biggest obstacle. Why can't, so until 2020, you couldn't buy an individual policy pre-tax. Think of it. Isn't it crazy that if I buy my insurance through my employer as pre-tax, but if I buy it myself, it's post-tax? It doesn't make any sense. If the federal government wants everyone to be insured, why do you give a tax preference to an employer versus a consumer that's buying themselves? Well, that has changed. In January 2020, the ICHRA came along, and for the first time in 75 years, an individual health insurance plan can be purchased through employers on a pre-tax basis. Well, ICHRA, in its very simplest terms, is this. It essentially took an existing law, which is why they did it through executive order, and though Trump did it through executive order, Biden did not undo it. In its simplest way, they modified the health reimbursement accounts. Health reimbursements have been around for a while. So they took an existing infrastructure and they did two things. They made the premium of an individual policy, including Medicare, an eligible expense under an HRA. So that's it. Prior to January 2020, you couldn't use HRA dollars to pay for premium. That's the main change. And then they raised the HRA limit to accommodate the higher expense, which makes sense, right? Because, $500 a month isn't great for family for ICHRA. So that is, in its simplest terms, what an ICHRA is. Now, there's other things I'll just rattle through here. It's the basics of an ICHRA, available to any employer regardless of size. There's no monthly annual limits. It's tax favored for the employees. Is if you cannot receive a premium tax credit and be available for an ICHRA. So if the employer is providing an affordable plan, which an affordable ICHRA plan is the ability to afford the lowest cost silver plan, that negates someone's ability to get a subsidy. Another thing on here is you can only, so employer and employee premiums are pre-tax. However, you can only buy off-exchange policies versus on-exchange policies. So if an employer is giving someone $300 and they buy an on-exchange policy for $500, that $200 is not pre-tax. If they bought a plan for $500 off exchange, the $200 is pre-tax. So that's the major thing. And for the most part, the number of plans off exchange are very similar to the number of plans on exchange. So they're essentially the same plan sold a different way. Now, with the change in the ICHRA laws, the insurance companies are beginning to make adjustments and treat the off-exchange policies a little different than on-exchange policies. For example, they may start rolling out more PPOs to accommodate executives. And that's one of the changes. So the affordability testing is required for applicable larger employers. It's based on work location. It's the lowest cost silver plan. We have, without getting into this too much, if you need to do an affordability test, we can provide the affordability test for you. And also there's ICHRA classes, full-time employees, part-time employees, seasonal employees. So you can have an ICHRA for a class of employees and have a group plan for another class. One of the biggest things is the rating errors. So if an employee's a combination of two or more, or let me see, employees working the same geographic area, the rating, is in many states you'll have 10, 15 rating areas. So if you have a group of employees in a certain location, that is an eligible class in and of itself. So a lot of people say, can I do it this way? Can I do a group plan for executives and ICHRA for everyone else? And the answer to that is generally no, because an executive class is just a random group of people that you choose to provide preferred benefits for. So that, that group plan under that scenario would become taxable. So here, what are the components of an ICHRA? There are three components of an ICHRA. There's the technology to help employees choose a plan based on their contributions. And without getting into a lot here, I will say we set up contributions to be by age. The average group plan is composite rating, meaning they charge a 21-year-old the same as a 64-year-old. And that's one of the problems, because now as employee contributions have gone up, you're also charging a 24-year-old the same amount of money as a 64-year-old for health insurance. And that's a bad deal for the 24-year-old and a good deal for the 64-year-old. So with the individual market, it's age rated, where the 21-year-old is 1/3 of the 64-year-old. The rates go up between 21 and 24 is the 1.0. From 24 to 64, they go up slowly until the 64-year-old is 3 times the 21-year-old. Now there's 3 or 4 states that don't apply that law. New York, Vermont have composite rating. Massachusetts uses a 2-to-1 ratio. And I think Hawaii is a national statewide healthcare program. So it's the technology. It's a way to process individual applications, and it's a payment mechanism for the employer's employees, which I'll go through in a minute. Through Insurance Advisors Direct, we've solved these problems, the technology and the payment mechanism. And that leaves a way to process individual applications. So we've automated the technology, we've automated the payment process. So in reality, what ICHRA really is, ICHRA administration is primarily handling individual health insurance. I would contend that the average ICHRA administrator out there is really a broker who sells individual insurance. So who sells individual insurance? A licensed broker. So if I automated other things, people say, are you an ICHRA administrator? I mean, what is an ICHRA administrator? The majority of the labor is the person who is being the broker. So when brokers take ICHRA and they give it to someone else, it's like a broker outsourcing brokering. I had one broker say, we're a broker, we can't outsource brokering, which is why we're on the call today, because what we have is people who handle individual insurance are saying, we're going to license the technology and license the payment, and we are going to collectively be the ICHRA administrator. You become that. So the way the payment works, just to let you know, it works a lot like group insurance. So rather than the employees pay, like a typical HRA, the employees would pay for something and then file a claim for reimbursement. But because this is premium and it's the same amount every month, we've set up a system to make it work just like group insurance. So imagine you have 6 employees and they're their premium is $1,000 each. So maybe the employer contribution is $700, the employees pay $300, so the total is $6,000 here. The employer, much like a group plan, takes employer contributions and employee contributions out of their pay. They deposit into a bank account. That bank account drops $1,000 onto everyone's debit card, and the carriers hit that card. And how do they hit that card? Well, after everyone enrolls, we produce a card for everybody, and whoever's enrolling the people with the carriers provides that payment mechanism. So the employee is not providing their debit card. This debit card is sponsored and funded by the employer. And the employer is getting the funds by using their contribution plus the employee contribution out of the pay to make a payment into a ICHRA bank account, no different than paying a premium or funding an HSA or funding a self-funded plan. So the employee is not fronting the money, and the employer is taking the money out of people's pay just like today. If an employee terminates, the employer does not terminate the insurance, they terminate this debit card. That's what they do. So now, if they terminated this bank account, then everyone's card would go off. So that's what happens. They terminate this debit card. And that's how it works. And the carriers charge each employee account. So firms in the traditional benefit space, in my opinion, are not prepared for this change. Now, being an old group guy, and I could answer lots of questions about why is there are about 32 states where the individual market is less expensive than group. So I could get into why. But in the old benefits world, if you have a 200-person client, you are serving an employer. And the questions come through HR or the CFO, and you consult the employer. The employer is the customer. However, if you move to an ICHRA, this is a new personalized benefits role. You are servicing 200 individuals. I just got a broker today says, well, I got a BOR and an ICHRA. I said, who wrote the BOR? Well, the employer. I said, the employer can't change the broker on 100 people who have insurance directly with a carrier. The individuals, an employer can't change the BOR on 100 employees. They are not party to that contract. So you, as the broker, need to be involved. This is transactional. The new benefits world is transactional and consultative to the individual. Most benefits firms are not structured this way. They're structured to do large case, self-funded, level funded, manage claims costs, service the employer. They're not equipped to service 200 individuals. This is a dramatic change in the business. So brokers who understand the individual market and individual buyers' thought processes are better positioned. And we are now reimagining the benefits world. So once again, I'm coming back from a group perspective and say, okay, ICHRA comes along. The way people buy health insurance has changed. What are the other implications of that? Let me give you the other implications of that and an opportunity to differentiate yourselves in the market. In the current group option, maybe an employer would choose a plan for $750 a month. The employer contributes $600 and they charge an employee $150. Now, with an ICHRA, you're essentially, the average individual health insurance is $7,739, and the family is this. This was a few years ago with Kaiser. Imagine a new world. The employer takes this $600 and gives it to employees. Now the employees choose how to spend it. Well, what if I could buy a catastrophic plan for $400 or a bronze plan for $400? Will that employer let me allocate some of these money to solve other problems in my life? Would I allow that employee to put $200 into an HSA? For those of you who don't know, they just loosened up the HSA rules where you don't have to have a high deductible healthcare plan anymore to have an HSA, to get an HSA. You get a bronze or catastrophic plan. So now I could buy a catastrophic plan or a bronze plan for a low price and put the money into an HSA. Keep in mind, the average healthcare cost of the healthiest 50% of our population is $386 a year. So rather than an employer look at this money as healthcare money, why don't they look at it as personal benefits dollars? Why would I care if the employee could use that money to put money in an HSA? Because definitely an HSA is funding for healthcare, or maybe pay down college debt, Or maybe buy direct primary care, which is now an eligible expense under an HSA. Because now, if I am in control of this money, what I buy for health insurance is not independent of whether I've got credit cards with 29% debt or college debt, or 58% of Americans don't have $1,000 in the bank for an emergency fund. So why don't you let employees broaden what they could use the money for to solve other problems in their lives? Because today you're forcing my 28-year-old daughter to pay the same amount of money as a 64-year-old in her business, who may make 3 times as much money. It is a bad benefit for her and a good for the 64-year-old. I would say composite rating was not designed to charge an employee 30, 40, 50% of premium. And when you look at the probability of needing a quick $1,000 for something, even at the age of 55 to 64, the probability of needing a fast $1,000 for something other than healthcare is 75%. So why is the employer so concerned about helping people so one-dimensionally with healthcare and charging the employees to have a lower deductible? As this union I said, they have a $1,000 deductible and then they charge $280. Well, that employee would rather have a $3,000 deductible and use the $3,300 in premium to save for one of these other expenses that have a 75% probability of happening more than hitting their deductible. So to do this, so I'm going to really wrap this up. I said I would do it kind of quickly and just give you an overview, and I'll do a demo in a second here. So one of the first things we do to quote, okay, so the way this works is generally the employer wants to see if I have my group plan here, and if I go to the individual marketplace, will the individual marketplace be as or more competitive than the group plan? And we built a tool to compare costs. And Tammy has access to that tool. We can show you how to do that, but I don't need to spend my time doing that. But we're able to put a group plan and group medical premium into our system and compare that cost to every single plan on the individual marketplace in 10 minutes. So the first thing you do is have what they call a go, no go. If they went to an ICHRA, will everyone come back screaming at me? And that's the first thing we do. And here's the information you need to do that. You need to have employee and the dependent dates of birth, home zip, monthly in case for affordable testing and plan to take it. Also, if we have current employer-employee rates and employee contributions, the way we sell ICHRA is not an employer savings, because most ICHRAs that we do, the employer may fix their budget on what they paid last year. It's about how the employees, by having more options, can control what they spend. So an ICHRA is sold on employee spend, not employer spend. As soon as they make the decision to go to the ICHRA and they give employees money, they can then make unilateral decisions on how to save that money and allocate it for other things. From a marketing standpoint, if I were marketing this in the fourth quarter, employers are desperate. Here's what I would do. I would appeal to the employer's fiduciary responsibility. This is the biggest change in health insurance tax laws in 75 or 85 years, whatever the number is. If it has been around for 5 years now, if you have not heard of this, why not? Like, where is your broker? So appeal to the employer's fiduciary responsibility. If you are charging your employees money for health insurance, then you somewhat have an obligation to see if there's a way those employees can save some money. Without seeing the numbers, it is hard to tell. So, you know, my campaign is around, it doesn't hurt to check. Mr. Employer, there's the biggest change in health insurance tax laws in 75 years. It could save your employees money. And why not take a look? It doesn't hurt to check. So if they haven't seen the numbers, why not? The law has been around since 20. You could indict the current broker for not taking a look. I believe it is the employer's fiduciary responsibility to understand the options in the marketplace. If you're charging the employees, you have that obligation to show them options. And that's kind of where we stand. Now, a lot of people think, I'm going to back up here, that, well, the individual market is not as competitive as group. And in some cases states that it's correct. But obviously, if you have a group over 50 or 100 lives that's experience rated, you know, all bets are off. Anything could happen. But since Obamacare came along, the insurance companies file their rates with the state as one big risk pool. So, for example, in Massachusetts, where I spend half my time, Tufts Health Plan has 180,000 people that they provide individual insurance for. When they file the rates with the state, they're essentially negotiating rates with the state on behalf of all the individuals in the state of Massachusetts. That $180,000 is one big risk pool. The average expenses to run an individual plan is less expensive than the average cost to run a group plan. So the individual market is the largest buying. You say, well, if I buy them individually, I can't, do it as effectively as, say, a larger employer. And I say, well, that's not really the case. Do you have more buying power if you're a part of a 50 or 500 or 5,000 person firm? Well, the answer really is, well, Tufts, Massachusetts has a 180,000 person firm. You are buying alongside of 180,000 people, which is in one risk pool where the expenses for that risk pool are run across more people. So I believe there's a campaign here. There are enough desperate people who have an obligation to show their employees. We have a chance, and I'm going to run this by, if we want to do employer webinars. I do webinars on how new health insurance tax laws can reduce costs for millions of employees now. I'm sure Tammy and IAD would gladly help and support and run webinars for employers. There is a mutual interest in all of us on the phone here to create an awareness at the employers of this opportunity. The growing inequities of employee benefits programs. Well, I would say charging my 28-year-old daughter the same as a 64-year-old is highly inequitable to the 28-year-old. How do you attract and retain talent when you have a group of younger, healthier people subsidizing older people? When I was younger, and I'm 63 now, the employer paid for 100% of the insurance. I wasn't subsidizing an older person, but the contributions have gone up so much. What you literally have now is one group of people subsidizing another group of people at the expense of their pay. Employer-based insurance is hindering advanced health care. I believe the opportunity is to, and I'll speak for myself, buy a higher deductible, put money in an HSA, and buy things like genetic testing to see if I'm predisposed to early forms of cancer. There's all this new health tech coming out that's available to save your life, but if you're not in control of the dollars, you can't afford it. So giving employees control of the funds is important. It is time for employers to move to a whole new employee benefits model. That model is stop thinking of the healthcare dollars as just healthcare dollars, but think of a broad way to personalize benefits. Will you let me take the $600, buy insurance for $400, put money in HSA, pay down college debt, buy direct primary care, put money in an emergency fund, allocate those funds to solve other problems in our life. Now that's not intended to be a perks program where I buy discounted movie tickets or discounted restaurant tickets to take my girlfriend out. It is to solve other problems in people's lives. So that is this part. I'm going to stop sharing for a second while I pull up my my demo. Tammy, anything to add here while I'm
No, you've done a great job. And, I just want to reiterate with our partnership between Enrichly and the agents, we definitely want to work towards getting you the information that you'll need in order to make this a successful transition. As Joe has very well put, the landscape is changing. There's employers are having to switch up their benefit packages, but it may not make them look attractive to employees. And where it's like, hey, it went up this much. You are taking back a little bit of that navigation and really being the consultant that we're all licensed to be. It's always good for anybody to have multiple options and multiple quivers, so to speak, as an agent. So I don't know if anyone has any questions before we start the demo. We certainly can. I see one coming in. Let's see, we have a question. Is the employer allowed to offer group and ICHRA? Because a lot of employees in the Chicago area are making a lot of money.
only if they could class them out according to the classes that I showed on the screen.
Right. Now, I do know, too, that was That was something that was in the one big beautiful bill. I've heard that it may kind of come to pass again, in some other maybe separate legislation about the Choice Act of them having a choice between a group or an individual plan, but we are not there yet at this point.
Let me respond to that question. See, the default position, because employees are making a lot of money, is that implying the group plan is better and therefore people with a lot of money would prefer the group plan? I would argue that's not really the case. I was with a high-tech company in Boston, highly compensated people, both young and old, very high-tech in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And the employer went to an ICHRA because he said, giving my employees more options, let them allocate funds to pay down college debt, put money in an emergency fund, put money in HSA is a better benefits program. So the default position that one option is better than many is really a false premise. Because if the employer is even paying for 100%, what if they gave that money to employees and let them allocate those funds to solve other problems in their lives? So I would say, don't presume that because they're highly compensated. I mean, no one goes to a restaurant, a pizza place with just cheese on the menu. And in fact, in most towns, there's more than one pizza place. So one size fits all has winners and losers. And Michael Cannon from the Cato Institute would argue that the employer money that they're spending for health insurance is really employee money. And why not give employees control of that money to allocate it? What if you're providing $7,000 a year for individual health insurance? Why don't you give that money to the employees and maybe let them spend $5,000 in health insurance and put $2,000 into an HSA or pay down college debt or something like that? So just a way that, the default, the reason I brought up that client in Cambridge, because the broker sat outside the building and he said to me, well, this is a highly compensated people. They're all high tech. They're never going to go to an ICHRA. And the HR person responded exactly the opposite of what that broker was thinking.
We can never assume anymore.
What's that?
So we can never assume anymore when we're, talking to
because
employers.
Yeah, so she just essentially said, yeah, giving people more options is better. So I'm gonna so here's the login. You put the client's logo here, and I have some base data here, and I'm gonna click, I could add dependents and click next. It's gonna show me my employee contribution is $468. So this is the system. If I'm waiving health insurance, it'll go to 0. I'm shopping off exchange, I'm getting $468. If I click next, it's gonna check this box to say I review the plan documents. And then here, I forgot what zip code I'm in. It shows me every plan in the market. So I've got $468. The amount spent is this, and now I can compare plans. Now this is a live client, or I shouldn't say it's a live client. It's the exact data of a client that was in Pennsylvania. So I could go here, I could view the summary document, I could see the plan details, I could search for providers, I could filter. Let's say I'm gonna want all HSA plans. And I got here, this is Blue Cross Blue Care Network of Michigan. And, I'll scroll down, and so I got $468. If I am, if I do this, I save $141 a month. Would I take on this responsibility for $141 a month, that I put into an HSA? And I click next. I click next. And here's what I did. I have an HMO. I bought this and put money in a health savings account. My employer provided this. I spent this. The amount available was $10. I should have put 10 more, right? What is it, 141? And that's it. So I spent all my money. So you'll see here, if I go back here, I'm born in 1984, and you saw here when I'm born in 1984, it's giving me $468. Yeah, I mentioned briefly in the presentation that is, it's age rated. So if I'm born in 1974, Remember this. It's going to show me that I got $671. And if I'm in California, it's going to show me California plans. So we have all off exchange, and this is all HSA eligible, right? And unfiltered this. And you can see obviously that the rates have gone up because I'm older. So after everyone enrolls, that data goes into the database. We create a debit card for someone to process that application for others. Now, if there's any money left over, don't have that. So we have a marketplace. I don't know why I don't have that to buy other things. We're going to turn stuff on or off here, like buy telehealth, buy other things that I could buy through this system. So that's the way it works. I guess we'll take other questions.
Mm-hmm. And just to kind of reiterate about the marketplace, so the extra dollars they get, they can use within the marketplace, or they can, wasn't there some other financial stuff they can do too? Because obviously we want people to cross-sell when we're looking at high deductible plans and stuff as well. Is there ways that they can
Yeah,
move forward
we're
with
doing
that?
deals to offer critical illness, accident, voluntary life insurance, voluntary disability, other voluntary products that we could add here.
And it'll all be done through the platform and everybody gets their own sign in. I think this also gives them a enrollment link, right? That they can share with the employees if they want to do their own enrollments.
No, this is
This is the link.
I was logged in as an employee right here.
Okay,
This
perfect.
was me logging in as a consumer.
Wonderful. So as you can see, it's kind of, if you had used to using 𝗁cie𝗶𝗄, you send them your link and for them to self-enroll. But here they're able to, take on some additional products, have a lot more flexibility. Most people probably know, in the group market, they're offered anywhere from, an employee's offered anywhere from 1 to 3 plans, let's just say, or, 2 in a HSA. Here you can have dozens, if not over 100 choices for the employees. So it really does put the power into the employees' hands, which makes them happier. If they're feeling like it's inequitable or they're, it's very high for them, this really is a nice tool for them to take a little bit more control back of their health care and how they spend their health dollars. So I don't know if anyone has any other questions while we have Joe on. Let me take a look here. Somebody did say really good presentation. I've been familiar with ICHRA for a couple of years and never heard it explained this way. So thank you for that. And then also, there's a question, can an employer bring in an ICHRA without employer contributions?
Yes. So what you're doing is taking the purchase of an individual policy and making it pre-tax through the ICHRA. It could be only employee money. Let me make another point is a lot of brokers been outsourcing ICHRA to other administrators. I made the point that, the fees these other administrators are charging, say 20 to 30 or $40 PPM, and the brokers that make money are adding on top of that. So now you got, fees to the employer at 40, 50, 60, and many of them take the BOR. When the market for the technology goes way down, because it's going to, and the market matures, then everyone's going to be fighting over the commission. So retaining BOR is extremely important to the financial future of your business. I had one broker, I just got off the phone this morning, who's a national firm. He says he put this business with some other vendor who took the BOR. I said, okay, so if I want to buy your ICHRA business, can I buy it? I said, you don't have a contract with the employer and you don't own the BOR and the policies. So what am I buying if I buy your business? So the model that we are delivering is enabling you to control your asset, to build your asset. And that's a major, major difference. Because I can tell you, when the ICHRA prices go down, and they will, everyone's going to be fighting over the commissions. And that's what we're doing, is the opportunity for you to somewhat be the ICHRA administrator with assistance from Insurance Advisors Direct and Tammy and the group.
Mm-hmm. And actually, why you brought that up is probably a good time too to kind of, explain how with the other ICHRA platforms that are out there and their prices are getting higher. They'll remain broker of record, but then they'll say they're going to give you a negotiated amount per employee per month. That's kind of your fee for giving them that. So you're giving away any opportunity for cross-selling, you're giving away any potential crossover to Medicare. So I think, keeping the costs affordable, we're still working out final pricing on some of the items. But what will end up happening is, you'll have some control to take potentially some of those dollars to charge an employer that you would have been giving to one of the competitors. So it really does put that power back in your hands of how you are working with your clients and not having to give up any of that relationship to somebody else who in turn will, take broker of record, and you don't know if you're ever going to have a touch with them again.
Yeah, and I would say that, charging these high fees are okay when you have what I call the reset year. You go from a bad group plan and you save everyone $150 a month. They'll pay you $50 a month when you save them $150 a month per employee. But that $150 a month savings, you don't get to get paid $50 perpetually forever because you save money for people this year. So that $50 fee is going to be a target on the back of your client. Everyone's going to be shooting at it. So come fourth quarter with your business, if the fees out there are too high, I wouldn't sleep too well at night.
Right. It's a very good point. Very good.
And now I would say the opportunity, even with existing business, is to go after existing business in the same way. There may be business out there. I got a broker who, one broker wrote an ICHRA, another broker came in and took a BOR over all the individual policies because the broker was servicing the employer, not the consumers. The individuals can choose their own broker, which is why you need to be able to be the broker, the known broker to the individuals. Because the employer has no control whether the employee wants to buy their insurance through someone else.
Right. So it's a relationship that gets you in the door with the employer, but it's maintaining that relationship with the individuals. So,
Right.
as technology gets more important, we have our IAD bridge with the Connecture, RetireFlow, and Medicare Pro CRM, where you can plug everybody into that and keep those touch points that you can just automate it so that when you have several hundred clients, individual clients through ICHRA, you don't have to worry about keeping up with them personally one-on-one. You just keep the touch point so that someone else doesn't come in behind you. That's a very good point.
And I forgot to mention, you mentioned Medicare. Medicare Sup are eligible expenses under ICHRA. So people over 65 can now run their Medicare expenses through ICHRA on a pre-tax basis.
Oh, wonderful. I did not know that. So that's great.
Yep.
And then what about this may pop up as a question at some point, but 𝗁𝗁𝗄𝗃. So the small, but that's the one that would allow them to maintain a subsidy if it was worth it.
Right, but the problem with there, it caps at, I believe, $500. So if you have a family, you got someone not eligible for subsidy, you got to solve that problem for the highly compensated who are not getting a subsidy and may have families. So, that is a difference in philosophy, right, between a Coursera and an ICHRA.
So the Coursera wouldn't work on the platform. They could
Coursera really
address
won't
a
work
different.
on a platform because you can get reimbursed for being on a spouse's plan and other things.
Okay, fantastic. Well, good. I do not see any other questions. One last call. If anyone has any questions, please go ahead and put them in the questions and answers. Again, this is being recorded, so you can go back. It's a lot of information to digest at one time, but we will be here. You'll be getting additional communication as we roll things out more. We definitely want to see who's interested, so please reach out to me via phone or email to let me know if you are interested in moving forward with the Enrichly IAD platform. And I do not see any more questions, so I will let everyone get back to their day. I know everybody's busy with AEP prep, so Thank you again, Joe, and
Thank
we will
you.
all be in touch soon.
All right. Have a great day, everyone. Bye now.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.